Welcome to week 6. 2 years ago, attending a course on church planting, we were given the assignment of going out to a public spot and stopping a number of people, saying we were conducting a survey and asking what style of music they preferred. So, I obediently stopped some people at the nearest BART stop. That's the Bay Area Rapid Transit System, for those of you who aren't familiar with the San Francisco and Oakland area. So I stopped this family, and the mother said, "I like classical." The father said, "I like jazz." The daughter said, "rock." And the son said, "hip-hop." I immediately knew I was in trouble, because the idea behind the class assignment was that by finding out what style of music people prefer, you would know what kind of music to offer in a worship setting for them. There was no style of music that would bring this family together in a common worship environment. I realized we're asking the wrong questions. The question isn't what style of music you prefer, it's what music draws you and means something to you and allows God to speak through you at the different times and ways that we use music in worship. So, for example, what music would you like sung at your funeral? What music do you use to express overwhelming joy? What music means sacred to you? If you ask those questions, you get some very different answers, and some very varied answers. So, those of you who are on Facebook already know, or I hope you already know, that I started a little meme going this week. It's called Musical Chairs, and you take this and you ask different people on Facebook. I'll post it also in the class for those of you who aren't on Facebook, so you can ask your friends by email or in person. And you ask them, what music do you like for this? What do you like for that? What music meant something to you? Tell me the story. If you're in a congregational setting, you bring together different people from different backgrounds, different ethnic backgrounds, different age groups, and you give them a handful of these questions, maybe just 3 or 4 or 5 ahead of time, and you invite them to bring their guitars and songbooks, their CDs, their iPods, whatever it is, and you go around the room and you say, okay, what's the most sacred music you know? Tell me the story about it. And you ask different people to share the music that they love and why it means something to them and how they encountered God in it. So I invite you to try that. One of the things that you discover when you're doing things like this is that it opens people's eyes to finding the sacred, to finding God in styles of music they didn't know they could appreciate. It also gets rid of some of our preconceived notions about music, and there are many of them. Moving away from the topic of worship music for a second, I bet you know as many people as I do who say they can't stand opera. And when you ask them about it, they've never been to an opera. They've never heard an opera. They've heard a couple of parodies of opera, short pieces, but they don't know what it is they're saying they don't like. What they're saying, effectively, is that somewhere along the line they learned that people like us don't like music like that. They don't know that had they been in Europe, in Germany or Italy 50 years ago, people like that, the ordinary working people, loved opera. It wasn't the style of music of the elite, educated, wealthy class, the way it has become in America. So some of these are prejudices. Well, one of mine is the idea that in order to listen to God, you need quieter music. That rock music becomes a performance rather than a worship experience. So there I was, talking to one of our teens, I think she was about 13 or 14 at the time, and asking her why she liked a youth group of another church better than ours. It should have been fairly obvious. We had all of 4 people in ours, and they had about 25. But she went into much more depth than that. And when she started talking about it, she said, I love it when the rock band is playing in the middle of the service, because while they're playing and I don't have to sing, that's my personal quiet time with God. And something clicked in the back of my head. I never, ever would have dreamt that rock music, which to me is loud and raucous and almost painful, is the way that somebody else finds their own quiet space with God. So we need to listen. I've heard other people say that one of the things they don't like about Episcopal services is that we are so still and self-contained. And I realize that they can't see that when I'm being still, it's because every fiber of my being is quivering with my longing and self-offering to God. And that to actually move in some way would distract me from that intense closeness and very physical reaction to God. But they don't know how to hear that. So this week is about silence and music, about motion and stillness, and where they fit together, and what it is that God says to us from them, and how we can learn to listen to each other as we explore this. I'll meet you in the forums.